They thought humanity would break. They were wrong. We were just getting started. The sun poured across the jagged plains of Epsilon 9, turning the alien ruins into a glittering maze of glossy shards and twisted metal. Light refracted in the shattered remnants of a civilization that had long since vanished, scattering rainbows across the dust-choked wind. Dr. Cale Mercer stepped lightly over the uneven ground, every movement cautious, heart hammering like a drum in his chest. He had walked among the corpses of extinct worlds before, but there was something unsettlingly alive about this place, something that watched. Cale's breathing echoed inside his helmet, each exhale punctuating the nervous tightness in his chest. He was alone at the edge of the ancient spire, staring down at what the alien records called the Crown of Dominion, a weapon whose very existence had drawn fleets from 100 systems, now lying inert, like a child's toy, in a crater of blackened stone. The first time he had seen the schematics on the starship's holotable, Cale had laughed. A toy, he had whispered. His colleagues had stared back in horror. How could a single device wield enough power to decimate entire colonies? Yet here it was, sleek, compact, and almost unassuming, resting in the dust like some forgotten artifact of a long-forgotten playground. But Cale wasn't laughing now. The closer he stepped, the more the air seemed to hum with potential energy. Tiny motes of dust shimmered like sparks, and the faint vibrations under his boots felt less mechanical and more aware. His palms were sweaty, and for the first time in years of space exploration, he felt genuinely small, fragile. Cale, a voice crackled over the comms. Commander Lyra's calm tone did little to settle the storm inside him. You're the closest. You have visual. Don't touch anything until we confirm readings. He nodded, though she couldn't see him. I know. His fingers itched with temptation. The desire to touch it, to prod the mechanism and feel the pulse of power, was almost unbearable. Part of him screamed that it was madness, that he shouldn't approach, yet another part, deeper, more primal, was curious beyond reason. The crown wasn't just a weapon. It was a promise, a test. Every civilization that had discovered such devices had ended the same way, annihilation. And yet, staring at it now, Cale saw not death, but potential. Potential for survival. Potential for humanity to rise above the alien hierarchies that had long scorned them. His mind wandered back to the homeworld, to the cramped corridors of the research station orbiting Terra Prime. The warnings from the Council had been clear. Humanity was fragile, impulsive, weak. You're too emotional to wield such power, they had said. You will break under its weight. And yet here he was, standing on the threshold, the very embodiment of their doubt, facing a weapon that could wipe out fleets with a flick of the finger. A soft hum pulsed through the ground. Cale froze. The weapon seemed to breathe, and with it, the entire spire responded. Lights embedded in the fractured stone flickered, tracing patterns like veins. The hum grew louder, resonating in his chest. For a moment, he could almost hear whispers, not words, not alien speech, but a language of force and intention, subtle yet undeniable. Cale's eyes darted around. Shadows shifted, though the sun was bright overhead. He realized that the ruins themselves were alive in some sense, reacting, observing, perhaps even judging. His stomach tightened. The internal conflict he had carried for months, the fear of failure, the weight of humanity's expectations, the memory of every casualty he had witnessed, crashed into the present. Could he truly wield this power responsibly? Could anyone? His mind screamed caution. Step back, it urged. You are not ready. You are mortal. But his heart beat faster, not with fear alone, but with exhilaration. This was what it meant to be human, vulnerable, imperfect, yet relentless in the pursuit of something greater. He had doubts, yes, but he also had hope, and hope, he realized, was a weapon just as potent as any alien device. He knelt carefully beside the crown, the metal surprisingly cool under his gloves. The intricate alien runes engraved along its surface glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the ground. Cale felt a strange resonance, like the weapon was testing him, weighing his intentions, calculating the potential within him. Cale, senses are off the charts. Lyra's voice cut in again, tension threading her tone. Are you seeing this? Yes, he whispered. It's responding. His fingers hovered over a circular core, unsure whether he wanted to activate it or simply admire it from afar. Every instinct screamed both danger and promise. He thought about the countless humans watching from distant colonies, the young engineers and soldiers who would never see such alien worlds firsthand. They had placed their trust in him. And perhaps, just perhaps, he could honor that trust without succumbing to fear. Then, as if answering his unspoken thought, the crown shivered under his touch. A delicate, almost playful vibration, like a cat stretching, traveled up his arm. Cale exhaled sharply. For the first time, he realized that the device was not a cold, impersonal engine of destruction. It was responsive, interactive, almost sentient in its design. A smile tugged at his lips despite the tension. He chuckled softly, the sound muffled inside his helmet. A toy. Yes, perhaps humanity could turn this terrifying artifact into something extraordinary. He straightened, resolve hardening. They had given him their deadliest weapon, expecting fear, expecting hesitation. But he was human, and humans, he realized, never followed the rules laid out for them. Cale took a careful step back, examining the crown with newfound understanding. The wind tugged at his suit, dust and light mingling in a dizzying display. Somewhere deep inside, a spark ignited, curiosity, courage, and defiance all tangled together. Humanity had been underestimated, and he could feel the first pulse of a revolution beating through his veins. The alien ruins stood silent, but Cale knew better. They were watching, and he was ready. For the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of clarity. Vulnerability remained, but it no longer paralyzed him. Hope, reckless and fierce, coursed through his chest. The crown might have been designed to intimidate, to annihilate, to punish, but in human hands, it might just become the key to survival. Cale stepped back fully now, chest rising and falling steadily. He looked at the horizon, where the sun caught the jagged spires of alien architecture, painting them gold. The future was uncertain, terrifying, and alive. And for the first time, he felt a thrill in that uncertainty. Because humanity had been handed the deadliest weapon in the galaxy, and Cale knew, with a certainty that made his heart soar, that they would treat it like a toy. The crown of Dominion pulsed faintly in Cale's hands, a quiet heartbeat beneath the roar of distant storms on Epsilon 9. From a horizon, the first signs of the alien fleet appeared, glimmering shapes slicing through the nebula-lit sky, engines leaving trails of cerulean light that danced across the clouds like rivers of ice. Every pulse from the crown seemed to resonate with their presence, almost as if it knew the danger was imminent. Cale's comm crackled. "Commander Lyra, they are approaching faster than predicted." Her voice was taut, strained, a thread of fear barely concealed. "Sensors indicate heavy armaments, ships capable of planetary bombardment. They know something's here." He swallowed hard. "And we're ready." His voice sounded hollow even to himself. Despite the crown, despite the decades of human ingenuity, Cale felt a familiar tightening in his chest. Doubt. Fear. That gnawing worry that humanity was fragile, impulsive, and unprepared for the horrors of an alien empire that had spanned centuries. The first ships descended, their hulls like polished obsidian, reflecting the alien sun in cold, jagged patterns. Hovering above the ruined spires, they scanned, searched, and probed. Cale could feel the hostility as a tangible pressure, an invisible wave pressing against his chest. He adjusted the crown in his hands, aware of its weight, its potential, its unpredictable promise. "You're thinking too much," Lyra's voice cut in again. "Focus on what we have, not what we might lose." Cale wanted to follow her advice, wanted to embrace confidence. But the doubts gnawed at him like acid. Could one man, even armed with the deadliest weapon in the galaxy, face a fleet of predators who had conquered entire star systems? Every scenario he ran through his mind ended in failure. And yet, each time, the crown pulsed again, almost as if it were whispering, "Do not fear. You are capable." He inhaled sharply, letting the alien air fill his lungs. There was no oxygen mask yet, but the atmosphere here, though thin, was breathable. The winds carried the scent of metal and dust, of storms yet to form. He stepped carefully along the uneven terrain, scanning the horizon. The alien fleet moved with precision, but there was a hesitation, a calculation Cale could almost read. They expected hesitation from humans. They expected fear. And Kale, he felt it, the hesitation, the fear, but not paralysis. Not yet. From behind a jagged ruin, Lieutenant Mara then emerged, her face pale but determined. Kale, the scanners, there's something else. She gestured toward the spires, where subtle distortions rippled across the ground. Energy spikes, she explained, that weren't coming from the ships. Some kind of preemptive defense mechanism, ancient and possibly sentient. Kale's mind raced. The crown, it can interact with it, he said, almost to himself. But we have no idea how. One wrong move. Mara's eyes met his. We have to try. If we don't, they'll annihilate everything in minutes. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him like gravity. A flash of memories crossed his mind. The colonies burned, the young engineers screaming in zero-G corridors, families lost to alien conquest, humanity's cries echoing in the void. And yet, he also remembered the laughter of children back on Terra Prime, the stubborn determination in every human he had ever met. They were small, yes, fragile, but they never surrendered, not truly. Kale clenched his fists. Then we begin, he said. He approached the nearest energy spike, the crown in front of him like a key. The weapon hummed, resonating with the spikes, vibrating with a frequency that made his teeth ache. Every instinct told him to step back, to run, to hide, but he stayed. The ground shimmered beneath his boots, ripples of light tracing patterns in the dust. The crown responded. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a translator, a mediator, a conduit. And if Kale could understand it, maybe humanity could survive. Suddenly, the alien fleet opened fire. Pulses of blue plasma tore across the sky, striking the ruins with explosive force. Dust and debris flew into the air, stinging Kale's face. Mara shouted over the noise, pointing at a collapsed spire. We need cover. Kale dived behind a jagged wall, clutching the crown. Sparks and shards of rock rained down around him. He could hear the hum of the weapon grow louder, almost sentient, thrumming in resonance with his heartbeat. It wanted action. It wanted resolve. Focus, he whispered. He reached out, tentative fingers brushing the surface. Light flared briefly at his touch, pulsing like a heartbeat in time with his own. And then, something remarkable happened. The energy spikes responded, forming a protective lattice over the team, deflecting incoming plasma in shimmering arcs. The crown had chosen to act, but it needed him, needed his courage, his fear, his humanity, to guide it. Kale's mind reeled. The aliens had designed it as a weapon of ultimate destruction, yet in human hands, it became something unexpected. Adaptive, responsive, almost playful in its subtle defiance of expectations. He felt a spark of exhilaration amidst the terror. Perhaps humanity's strength wasn't in brute force or technology or discipline, but in unpredictability, in the capacity to innovate, to improvise, to embrace the chaos that others feared. Another volley came, and Kale steeled himself. The crown pulsed brighter now, light racing along its alien runes. Mara and the team followed his lead, ducking and weaving, learning the rhythm of the weapon, the cadence of the ruins, the pattern of the alien assault. Kale felt something shift inside him. The fear was still there, sharp as ever, but so was determination. Every hesitation, every doubt, every internal argument faded beneath a single realization. Survival was never about perfection, it was about will. And humans had will in abundance. The alien fleet drew closer, their massive ships blotting out portions of the sky, their energy shields glowing ominously. Kale's chest pounded with anticipation and terror, but also with clarity. They had underestimated humanity. They assumed fear would paralyze, that caution would hinder, that weakness would break. But humans, Kale realized, was something else entirely, resilient, inventive, and yes, sometimes reckless. He inhaled, exhaled, and lifted the crown. The energy spikes flared in response, creating a protective dome around the team, shimmering like a living crystal. He grinned despite the chaos. If they survived this, if humanity survived this, they would not just endure. They would strike back in ways the aliens had never imagined. The battle was only beginning. And Kale Misa, armed with a weapon the universe had feared, was ready to show what it meant to be human. The battlefield was a kaleidoscope of fire and ruin. Jagged shards of alien spires jutted from the scorched ground, casting long, fragmented shadows in the blazing light. Cale Mercer's boots crunched over the debris as the crown pulsed in his hands, reacting to every tremor, every movement, every heartbeat. The weapon's glow flickered, almost impatient, as if urging him to act faster, think bolder, risk more. But Cale felt fragile. Human. Too human. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him like the gravity of a dead world. They had given him the deadliest weapon in the galaxy, and now it demanded mastery he could barely comprehend. The alien fleet loomed overhead, an oppressive canopy of steel and intent, waiting for a moment of hesitation to crush humanity entirely. Cale, Mara's voice was tense over the comms. Sensors are showing movement behind us. Not alien, something else. Cale froze. His stomach knotted. He scanned the horizon, and then he saw it, Lieutenant Rannick, one of their most trusted officers, signaling from a ruined ridge. At first glance, it seemed like coordination, but the angle, the subtle hesitation in his posture, the way his eyes avoided Cale's, they weren't helping. They were communicating. Rannick. Cale whispered. A cold dread spread through him. What are you doing? Rannick's response came, slow, deliberate, almost casual. I think you're making a mistake, Cale. The crown isn't meant for humans. Step aside. The words hit him like a plasma blast. Betrayal. Shock. Fear. Cale's fingers tightened around the crown, the glowing runes reflecting in his visor. Step aside. We're standing on the edge of extinction. How could you? But before he could finish, a surge of energy from the crown pulsed violently. It flared bright blue, throwing him back several steps. The hum of the weapon intensified, as if aware of Rannick's intentions, resonating with his anger, confusion, and despair. The battlefield erupted. Alien ships rained down plasma, igniting the ruins, sending sparks and metal fragments flying. Cale stumbled through the chaos, clutching the crown. Every instinct screamed survival, but the internal collapse threatened to overwhelm him. How could he fight the enemy outside when the enemy inside, doubt, fear, betrayal, was just as lethal? Cale, focus. Mara shouted, pulling him to cover behind a jagged spire. We need the crown stable. He nodded numbly, chest heaving. Sweat streamed down his face beneath the helmet. His mind raced. Could he trust anyone? Could he trust himself? The visions of failure, the countless times humanity had been underestimated, pressed in from all sides. The crown pulsed again, responding to his emotional state, chaotic, unpredictable. And then he saw it. Rannick, climbing onto a high ridge, signaling to the alien fleet. A beacon of treachery. The human heart shattered under the weight of betrayal, and Cale felt the full force of it, a crushing blow more devastating than any alien weapon. He sank to his knees, the crown trembling in his grip. Memories of Terra Prime, the countless people relying on him, the flickering hope that had carried humanity this far, they collided with the raw, bitter sting of treachery. The weapon's hum became a scream, a mirror of his panic and despair. For a moment, Cale wanted to let it go, to abandon everything, to collapse beneath the magnitude of hopelessness. But then he saw Mara, her eyes wide, unflinching, standing beside him despite the chaos. She did not waver. She did not flee. She trusted him. And in that moment, something shifted. Humanity's defining trait, the refusal to surrender, even when the odds were astronomical, sparked within him. He gritted his teeth. No, he whispered. Not yet. The crown responded. Its pulsing light steadied, aligning with his will, his resolve. Cale realized that it wasn't just a weapon. It was an extension of intention, a reflection of humanity's potential. The alien designers had underestimated the human capacity for chaos, for courage, for unpredictability. They had assumed fear would break him. But fear, he realized, could also fuel clarity. Cale rose, steadying the crown. The energy flared around him, forming arcs of protective light, shielding Mara and the remaining team. The alien fleet's plasma strikes bounced harmlessly off the shimmering shield. He could feel the crown synchronizing with his emotions. Fear? Yes, but tempered by resolve, anger, and determination. Rannick's betrayal was personal, but it also crystallized a truth Kale had always suspected. Humans thrived on imperfection. Our mistakes, our impulses, our emotional chaos, these were not weaknesses. They were tools, weapons even, when harnessed with courage. The alien ships adjusted, calculating. Their senses picked up the Crown's energy signature, trying to anticipate the next move. Kale felt a surge of exhilaration. Humanity was unpredictable. We were messy, reckless, and that made us dangerous. Kale, what now? Mara's voice was calm, but the tension beneath it was palpable. He looked at her, then at the horizon. The fleet loomed, the terrain was torn, and the future uncertain. And yet, he felt something deeper than hope, something almost primal, defiance. Now, he said, voice low but steady, we remind them who they are dealing with. With a thought, a flick of his will, the Crown pulsed violently, sending a wave of energy across the battlefield. Debris levitated, plasma arcs redirected, alien targeting arrays scrambled. The spire beneath Rannick's position cracked and shivered. Kale felt the power course through him, terrifying and exhilarating all at once. He was human, fragile, afraid, but in that fragility was strength the aliens could not anticipate. Rannick's face went pale as the energy washed over him, the betrayal meeting the raw unpredictability of human courage. Kale realized the Crown didn't just reflect strength, it magnified intent, morality, and determination. A human mind, raw and unfiltered, could wield it in ways the aliens never considered. For a moment, time slowed. Dust and light mingled in the shattered ruins. Mara stood beside him, unwavering. Kale's chest rose and fell steadily now, the internal collapse replaced by clarity, tempered by fear, but no longer ruled by it. The battlefield was far from won, and the alien threat still loomed. But Kale had survived the breaking point. Betrayal had tried to shatter him, an internal collapse had threatened to consume him, but he had found equilibrium, a new resolve forged in the chaos. Humanity had not broken. Not yet. And as the Crown hummed in his hands, responsive to his will, he knew that the next move, against the alien fleet, against fate itself, would be decisive. The sky above Epsilon 9 burned with light, streaked with plasma from the alien fleet's relentless assault. The ruins beneath Kale Mercer trembled with every strike, the ground scorched and shattered. Yet he stood at the center, crown in hand, pulsing with radiant energy. It was no longer a dormant artifact. It had awakened, a symphony of power that responded to human intent, courage, and will. Kale's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, adrenaline coiling through his veins. Mara and the remaining team flanked him, their eyes wide, reflecting the radiant light of the Crown. Around them, debris floated in shimmering arcs, suspended by the energy field that Kale now commanded. Every pulse of the weapon sent tremors through the ground, warping the air like heat over molten metal. The alien fleet hesitated for the first time. Sensors scrambled, ships shifting positions, energy shields flickering. They had predicted the Crown would destroy, annihilate, intimidate, but they had not predicted the human within it. Kale, frail and human, vulnerable and emotional, was directing it with instinct and courage no algorithm could anticipate. He lifted the Crown higher. The runes along its surface blazed with intensity, light flaring outward, scattering shadows and reflecting off twisted spires. The weapon pulsed in resonance with his heartbeat, a rhythm of defiance. And then he remembered the words that had haunted him since first touching it. Do not fear. You are capable. Kale's fear was still there, sharp and biting, but it no longer ruled him. Every tremor of doubt was transformed into focus, every pang of insecurity into determination. This was humanity's strength, not perfection, not predictability, but the ability to endure, to adapt, and to rise when the universe expected failure. A massive alien warship descended, its hull gleaming like black ice, bristling with weapons designed to pulverize planets. Kale inhaled deeply, feeling the Crown's energy surge in response. He raised his hands, and with a thought, the weapon expanded, energy rippling outward in waves that distorted the air, bending light and gravity in impossible ways. The alien ship's weapons fired, bolts of deadly plasma streaking toward him, but they were intercepted, deflected by arcs of energy flowing from the Crown. Sparks danced across the battlefield, illuminating shattered ruins and the determined faces of humanity's defenders. Mara's team moved with precision, instinctively understanding the rhythm of the crown. Kale's mind focused, and the weapon responded like a living extension of his will. He could feel every movement of the alien ships, every fluctuation in their energy shields. He had no blueprint, no manual, no plan, only instinct, courage, and the raw unpredictability of human ingenuity. And it was enough. The energy surged again, brighter, stronger, as the crown's power intertwined with his intent. Kale directed it outward, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Alien hulls shattered, engines overloaded, and plasma arrays erupted in spectacular arcs. Ships that had once seemed invincible were reduced to shards of metal and fire, drifting across the alien sky like dying stars. Kale felt his body tremble, exhaustion creeping in, but he did not stop. He had been fragile, vulnerable, human, but now he was the focal point of humanity's defiance. He realized that the crown did not just amplify physical power, it magnified will, courage, and resilience. In the hands of a being unafraid to risk, to hope, to defy, it became unstoppable. Then he saw Rannick, stumbling through the ruins, regret etched across his face. Kale felt the sting of betrayal one last time, but it was tempered by the clarity of victory. Humanity had endured, and treachery would not define them. The crown's glow flared brighter, almost protective, ensuring no harm came to those who had trusted in Kale's resolve. The remaining alien ships retreated, their formation collapsing as if the universe itself had shifted against them. Kale's heartbeat slowed, and the crown dimmed, responding to the calm he had regained. The battlefield, once chaotic, now lay in silent ruin, golden light spilling across shattered spires and floating debris. Humanity had survived. Humanity had triumphed. Mara approached, eyes wide with awe. "Kale, you did it. We did it." Kale lowered the crown slowly, letting its energy settle. "No," he said softly, voice raw but steady. "We did it. Humanity did it." He glanced at the horizon, where the alien fleet had vanished, leaving only distant glimmers in the nebula-lit sky. They had underestimated humans, and they would never forget the lesson. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of scorched metal, dust, and alien ozone. Kale felt exhaustion washing over him, but also something heavier: hope. Humanity had faced extinction, betrayal, and the deadliest weapon in the galaxy, and they had emerged stronger, wiser, and unbroken. He looked down at the crown, its runes faintly glowing, almost playful, as if acknowledging the partnership between human courage and alien design. What had been intended as a tool of domination had become a beacon of possibility. And Kale understood, finally, that humanity's strength had never been in restraint, obedience, or fearlessness alone. It had always been in their unpredictability, their resilience, and their indomitable spirit. The sun set over the ruins of Epsilon 9, painting the battlefield in gold and crimson. Kale Mercer, weary but unbroken, stood with the crown in his hands, Mara and the remaining team beside him. They had survived the breaking point, faced betrayal, and confronted the deadliest force in the galaxy. And in doing so, they had proven what humanity had always known. We adapt. We endure. We rise. And no matter the weapon, no matter the enemy, humans would never be underestimated again.